And we are live. Brilliant stuff. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth session of the QGIS Open Day. Thanks, everyone, for joining us once again. We have a really fantastic session for you guys. So this one is all about the new QGIS GeoNode plugin. And we have Ricardo, who's going to be taking us through in a informal tutorial style session showing us the GeoNode plugin for QGIS. We also have Tim in the room who will be in and out of it. And just welcome everyone to the session. Welcome Ricardo, welcome Tim. And over to you. Please tell us the very cool new things happening in GeoNode.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Maybe should I start sharing my screen now, or?
Yes, yeah? Go for it.
Okay. So just bear with me while I try to share it. Okay.
There we go.
So thank you for joining, and today's session will be about the new QGIS GeoNode plugin, which we have been busy implementing and still are, and it's hit a mature point where we are going to be releasing version 1.0 soon and graduating it out of the experimental tier of plugins. So we want to tell the whole world about it and get a lot of interested users using it and giving us feedback so that we can improve it further. So, and today I wanted to talk a bit about it and show it in action and tell you how you can use it for yourselves. So, sorry about the cough. It's a bit of a recurring issue that's going to be happening throughout the presentation, but just bear with me. I apologize. So I've taken some notes that you can see here on the right side just to guide my intervention throughout the session. And the idea is that I will just speak a bit about the plugin initially, just a couple of minutes, and then we will jump onto QGIS and I will show you how it works in practice. Okay, so first things first, we have already published the plugin on the official QGIS repository. So everyone who is interested can already install it in your local QGIS instance. I must say there is currently one nasty bug that we've uncovered recently when I was preparing for this talk, which may not make it very usable right now, but my promise is that the fix will be hitting the repo later today. So I would say if you want to be comfortable, from next Monday on, you should be able to use it without any hiccups. It's just a fair warning. We have also a nice documentation page where we have a user guide that shows you how the plugin is supposed to look like and how you should proceed in order to use it. The link, you can find it on the details inside QGIS as well. So if I come here, if I look for the GeoNode plugin, which in my case I already have installed, you will find the link to the homepage right here, and it will take you to the page I was just mentioning, where you can get all the details about the plugin, how to use it, and whatnot. The source code is also open and available for you to inspect at GitHub. We are hosting it at Cartosa's organization, GitHub organization for now, and one of the things that will be happening in the near future is that we will be putting it under the GeoNode organization and kind of hand it off more properly to the whole GeoNode community. Okay, so what is this that I'm talking about? This is a Python plugin for QGIS that allows us to interact with remote GeoNode deployments. So it is meant to be something like a more GIS-oriented GeoNode client, which would cater for more technical users than the ones that regularly would use GeoNode via its main web user interface. So the idea that we have with this plugin, and that we want to keep making it a further reality, is that QGIS would be the main GIS client for GeoNode, where users would be able to generate their data sets, edit their relevant styling and metadata, and then upload it to remote GeoNode instances, all from within QGIS without having to use the browser UI or other different user interfaces. How did this plugin come to be? So this is mainly the result of an ongoing project spearheaded by SPC, the Pacific Community, and it has funding from the World Bank. And in this project, there was the need to create a tighter integration between QGIS and GeoNode that would make use of the recent advancements that the GeoNode team has been doing to the GeoNode API. So you may be aware that QGIS currently has a core provider for GeoNode, which is native to QGIS, meaning that you don't need to install anything in order to gain access to it. But since the GeoNode team has been making an effort to provide more GeoNode functionalities available via its API, what's been happening is that the core GeoNode provider in QGIS is kind of starting to pick up some lag in terms of the features that it has, because its maintenance cycle is tied to QGIS's own release cycle, and the GeoNode team is moving very fast with bringing in new features. So there was a need to come up with something that would allow a faster iteration from the QGIS side in order to keep up with GeoNode development. So we developed this new QGIS GeoNode plugin that would be used to fulfill this need. And our expectation is that in due time, we may have a discussion with the broader QGIS community with regard to replacing the core GeoNode provider, or at least removing the core GeoNode provider, and direct interested users to use this plugin instead, which will hopefully be better supported and better maintained throughout the time as GeoNode itself evolves and as QGIS continues to evolve as well. Okay, how you can install it? It is available on the main QGIS plugin repository, so you can just search for GeoNode here and you should be able to get it. For now, it is still flagged as an experimental plugin, so you should be sure to have the Show Experimental Plugins option turned on in order to see it. And after you install it, you should, for the moment, restart QGIS, because the plugin uses some things which are not able to be dynamically reloaded. So if you restart QGIS, it should be showing up in its correct intended purpose. Let's put it like that. Okay, so the current version is version 1.0 release candidate 1. So we are still ironing out some issues with the plugin, and that's why it is also flagged as experimental. But as I was saying, the expectation is that after today's talk, we should be able to prepare a release of a proper view 1 and graduate out of the experimental tier. So by next week's Monday, you should be able to use it comfortably. Okay, what features does it have? I'm going to take you through them soon, but I just want to quickly go over them. So it allows you to connect to multiple GeoNode deployments by using the QGIS Data Source Manager. It has a familiar interface where you can on the top you can configure connections. Oh, sorry. You just need to basically know the URL of the GeoNode instance that you want to use, but I will go through this in a moment. You can then search for existing GeoNode datasets by using multiple search filters. You can load them onto QGIS by using the provided OGC web services that GeoNode features. A recent addition is that you can authenticate with the remote GeoNode deployment by using basic auth credentials. So this means you can just use your normal username and password, and this will allow you to load any private data sets that you may have access in the remote GeoNode. When a layer is loaded onto QGIS, we will retrieve the GeoNode dataset metadata and show it on the native QGIS metadata section of the layer properties tab. And it will also load whatever symbology has been configured on the GeoNode side for vector layers. Finally, the plugin also has nascent capabilities for updating a remote GeoNode resource. So you will be able to update some metadata fields. You will be able to update the symbology of a layer up to some degree. And depending on your access rights, you will even be able to upload QGIS layers to GeoNode, new layers, so you can create new GeoNode resources directly from inside QGIS. Okay, so let's go. I will leave this future part for after we have had a small tour of the actual functionality. Okay, so in here, I am going to be using a connection to the GeoNode demo public public instance, which is available at this URL, masterdemo.geonode.org. So first I want to show you what it looks like. So maybe some of you are not familiar with the new GeoNode user interface. This can also be a nice introduction to it. But anyway, so this is the public demo of the master branch of GeoNode, and we can see that there is a list of datasets here, and there are about 300 resources that are here, and I just want to show you how we can access them from inside QGIS. But first, I wanted you to realize that this is an existing public deployment. Okay, my configuration, currently I am using a basic out for accessing this server. So this is integrated with the native QGIS authentication framework, where you just need to create one, select basic auth, and input your username and password. Obviously, you would need to be registered on the remote GeoNode instance first. So these are my access credentials for the master demo GeoNode instance. And then I have the option to configure some additional connection settings, of which maybe the most relevant is the WFS version that should be used for loading vector layers. For the moment, even if there are more recent versions of the WFS protocol, we advise to use version 1.1.0 due to a very recent bug that was uncovered recently with QGIS. But anyway, if you just press the detect button, the plugin should be able to contact the remote and put in the correct choice here for you. You can also perform a basic connection test just to make sure that the remote exists and is able to speak to QGIS. And after you perform a test of the connection, you will be given information about the capabilities that the plugin is able to perform on this remote. So we have designed the plugin in order to be able to support both current and also more legacy GeoNode deployments. So for older GeoNode deployments, we may not be able to offer all of these capabilities that are here. So for example, loading layer metadata or uploading vector or raster layers may not be supported on an older version of GeoNode, but the intention is that at least for all GeoNode versions that are modern and in the near future, all these capabilities will be supported, and new capabilities that will eventually be added to GeoNode will be added to the plugin as long as it makes sense in a QGIS context, I mean. So after I configure my connection, I have a search interface here where I can use it on a basic level to filter available resources by their title, or if I want to make a more advanced filtering, I can choose to filter by abstract or keyword, or by isotopic category, or by temporal or temporal extent, publication date, and spatial extent is currently disabled while we are still working on it, but it's an upcoming feature too, depending on where we are on the QGIS map canvas. So for first, I just want to press the search button without any filtering criteria, just so that you know what is the default search, what do the default search results look like. And as you can see, you get a list of search results which you can paginate through. You have here mention of how many results matched your search, and you can paginate through them, you can sort them, and in order to get the most relevant results visible to you as soon as possible. The list that is returned features a small graphic preview and also some information about the type of layer that QGIS will be able to load as, and additionally, if there is an abstract, it will be shown here along with the layer title. And luckily, okay, you can see here that some of these have indeed some abstracts. Most of them do not have them, but anyway.
I really like the summary. That's brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to be able to know what you're getting.
Yeah. Then after you have found some layer that you think would be relevant to work with, you have the option to load it or to visit it directly on the main GeoNode web portal. So for example, the first layer, if I press this button, I should be shown the layer details directly on the main GeoNode UI. Okay, and if I want to load it inside QGIS, I can either choose to load it as a WMS layer, or in this case, since this is a vector layer, I can also choose to load it via WFS. An upcoming feature of the plugin would be to allow downloading the layer in a file-based format, like a GeoPackage or a shapefile or some other relevant format, and use that in QGIS in order to keep it locally if needed. So let's say I would want to load it via WMS. I press the load button and eventually it will load it. So I can see already here on the layer stock that it is here. And let's try loading another layer. For example, let's say this one as a WFS layer, just to have two different ones to show you. Okay, so after I have loaded my layers, here it is, that one, the roads. Let's just put here, well, I'm going to use the map tiler provider that some other folks will be presenting later. I'm going to use it just to give us a bit of context as to where we are in the world. So this layer is from somewhere in Ghana. And as you can see, I can already work with it comfortably. This being a WMS layer, I can come here to the layer properties dialog and I can inspect its information as returned by the server. And the plugin, the GeoNode plugin also actually inserts a new section in the layer properties dialog that allows us to interact with GeoNode based layers And this is also where we will be able to upload layers to GeoNode when we want to do that. So here in this case, we can choose to, again, open this layer on GeoNode, or we can view its API details. In this case, since this is a WMS layer, we cannot really use this style section, but I'm going to demo it for the vector layer. But we are able to reload the metadata if we want to. So, as I was saying earlier, when we load a layer from GeoNode, its relevant metadata fields get also brought into QGIS, and they are integrated in the layer properties metadata section. So here I can check the remote identifier, the title, and the abstract, and which other categories the layer may have. So in this case, there isn't really a topic category assigned. So this kind of depends on whether if the GeoNode layer has this information. If it does, it will be shown here on the native QGIS metadata section. And we are able to, depending on our user access rights, we may be able to modify things about the layer. And I'm going to show it that when I create my own layer, because I won't be modifying this layer that I don't even know who is the owner of it. Okay.
We have a quick question in the chat. It's from Hans van der Kwast. Hi, Hans. Nice to see you. He asks well, first of all, he says this is a great plugin. Will the plugin replace the native GeoNode connection option, or will it just remain a plugin?
Well, that is something that we will be bringing to the broad QGIS community later on for discussion. Our current plan, yes, we want this to be going forward. We want this to eventually become the official way to connect to GeoNode from QGIS. And in fact, what we are doing right now with the plugin, if I come here to the QGIS Data Source Manager, you will see that the plugin is actually replacing the core provider of GeoNode, which is no longer present on this list. So if you uninstall the plugin, the core provider will show up again. But as long as the plugin is installed and activated, it will actually be already replacing the core provider. But in the future, what we would like to propose to the QGIS community is to actually remove the core provider from QGIS core, because it is an additional maintenance burden, and just replace it or direct users to this plugin, because this is actually being developed in close contact with the GeoNode core development team, and the idea is to put this plugin under the GeoNode organization, and make it so that the GeoNode community takes it under its wing and maintains it together with the GeoNode codebase. So we want to kickstart this discussion soon with the broad QGIS community, but we feel like the plugin should get a bit of actual broad user testing in order to make it to make existing bugs be surfaced and fixed, and let's say battle test the plugin a bit before we move on with this further plan. But that is definitely on the roadmap.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ricardo.
Okay, so now I just want to show you that for a WFS layer, we are also able to work with it. In this case, since this is serving directly the vector features, we can style it in whatever way that we want, for example here, and we can enjoy the same metadata being brought into QGIS. In this case, since this is a WFS layer, I can actually choose to reload the style from GeoNode. So I have modified it with this symbology from inside QGIS, but let's say I want to undo this. I can ask to reload, oh, sorry, not the metadata, the style. And it should be showing again the layer native style. And if my user had the correct access, I would be able to save the current style back to GeoNode, which is what I'm going to demonstrate next. Okay, so now I just want to show you how I can, for example, create a new layer, upload it to the remote GeoNode, and modify its metadata and styling from within QGIS. So in order to make it simple, I'm going to use the QGIS memory provider just to create a very quick layer. Let's say my GeoNode layer, something like this. I'm going to create a polygon layer with some, let's say, this attribute, just as a test. So I'll put just a string attribute inside, and I'm just going to sketch out a very rough outline of this populated area. Okay, so let's say this is my layer. I'm going to say my attribute, something like this. Right, so let's say I would have my own layer, I'd save it, and now I'm going to tweak the symbology a bit. Let's say, let's make it a yellowish color with some of this hatching pattern. Oh, sorry, my bad. This, in fact, this is not what I wanted to do. Let's put in like this. Okay, let's see how well it works. And I'm also going to give it a title, say QGIS Open Day GeoNode demo, and some abstract. This is a layer created in QGIS. Okay, I'm going to apply. And now I'm going to be, since this layer did not come originally from GeoNode, these fields are disabled, but I can choose to upload it to one of my configured GeoNode connections. So I'm actually going to use this one, my GeoNode demo master connection, which, if you recall from earlier on, is already using basic authentication. So I will be allowed to perform this upload. I have a very basic control here to either make the layer publicly available or not. So in the future, we may expand this to a more full-fledged permission management option. But for now, it's just I can either make it public or private. And if I need something more advanced, I will go to the GeoNode main web user interface and configure it. Okay, so let's just keep it public for now. And I'm going to choose to upload the layer to GeoNode. Sorry about that. It takes a bit, but it eventually would work. Let's just hold it. Okay, layer uploaded successfully. So hopefully we will be able to find it on GeoNode. Let's first see if we can use the web UI to find it. Let me come back here. It's something like QGIS Open Day something. Here we go, QGIS Open Day GeoNode demo. So it is on the remote GeoNode. It is owned by my username. And as you can see, the styling did not really map 100%. So on QGIS, I actually have this nice, I don't really know how to say this in English, but this symbology. And unfortunately, there is no 100% compatibility with the GeoNode styling and the QGIS styling. So sometimes you may have a good fidelity between the symbology, other times not so good, as you can see here. But that is actually something that we can actually work towards improving in the future, now that we have the basic option of at least uploading the style, converting from the native QGIS format onto the SLD standard that GeoNode recognizes. And in the future, we can improve the compatibility. So as you can see, the title is here and the abstract is also here. And now I just want to prove to you that if I remove this native QGIS layer and I come back to my plugin, I can eventually find it. So let's look for QGIS Open Day. I can find it by using the plugin, and now I can load it back either as a WMS or a WFS. I'm going to load it as a WFS because I want to also demonstrate how I would be able to modify the layer. Now that I have it here, since this is actually being served via WFS, I would be able to fine-tune it, provided that I have enough access permission. But let's say I would make some edits to the layer geometry. Let's make it more evident like this, okay? So I could do this, then I would save it, and as the layer is saved, it should be updated on the GeoNode side as well. So as you can see, here we go, the updated geometry. And this is, let's say, the beginning of a workflow where technical users can use QGIS as a GIS client to basically create and process their data, and then have a very easy way to publish it to the world or to their internal departments or institutions with just a couple of clicks. And I guess this is pretty much it of what I wanted to demo. I just want to go through what I have here, plans for the future. So as I said, we have to fix a couple of pending bugs that we have still, and we'll be releasing the proper version 1.0 of the plugin very soon and graduate it out of the experimental tier. So the plan is to get this done today and throughout the weekend, so that on next week you can have on Monday have a fresh plugin to demo and to see whether it suits your workflows or not. We will then move to handing over the source code to the GeoNode community. So up till now, we have been developing it at Cartosa with help from the GeoSolutions team, which is our partner on the PRN project. But the idea is to, as I was saying, to make this into a proper community and releasing it to the GeoNode community. Then we will be engaging with the broader QGIS community in order to see whether we can sunset the core QGIS GeoNode provider and direct users to use this plugin instead. And later down the line, we will be continuing to add features, like, for example, downloading datasets using file-based formats, add support for additional metadata fields, improve the styling, and so on and so forth. So the idea is to turn QGIS into a proper GeoNode client and make it a very valuable tool for technical users that are dataset producers and people who do generation and analysis and have GeoNode in the mix in there. Okay, so I guess this is it. If there are further questions, please.
Thanks, Ricardo. I will. I'd just like to say that there's a lot of appreciation for this plugin. Sabir says, hi all, amazing plugin. Rido says, very, very nice.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions. Jigme or Higme says, nice plugin. What is the size of the storage provided by GeoNode for each registered user? If you know.
In fact, I have to confess I don't really know about that.
Well, it's self-hosted anyway, so I mean, usually, so you just only limited by how much disk space you have more than. I don't think there's a quota system, or there never used to be a quota system in the old version.
Yeah, Tim has a fair point. I don't think that is currently constrained, but I may be wrong. But I guess this is something that we would need to check on the GeoNode side. Unfortunately, I don't really know it from the top of my head.
Brilliant stuff. Then Hans comes in and says, great that it also supports rasters with the native connection that wasn't available. For the raster styles, maybe SLDs created with the SLD for raster plugin can be uploaded to GeoNode.
Yeah, for rasters, we are supporting them, but there is currently a lack, as you are implying, there is a lack of SLD support in terms of loading onto QGIS. So we are currently able to export a raster symbology back to GeoNode, but unfortunately, we are not able to apply it by default when you load a dataset, a GeoNode dataset using WCS. So if you load it via WMS, you will see your style applied, but the more interesting option would be to load the actual matrix values, the actual raster, and have whatever style GeoNode has be automatically loaded by QGIS. But that feature is currently lacking from QGIS itself. So there is definitely room for improvement in this area. But I guess with making this more visible, this existing limitation, maybe we can also help generating further interest for improving the SLD raster support in QGIS itself, which for the moment, as I was saying, is limited to providing export capabilities and not so much import. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Tim, I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
Obviously close to the wheel on this one, so I know exactly everything it does. But just to thank both Ricardo and the GeoNode community for all the awesome tools they've been making. It's really wonderful. I would put one comment. Another option, instead of actually removing the GeoNode from QGIS core, to remove the code, but to have like kind of a function where you've got a stub of a icon, for example, and then when you click on it the first time, it will actually prompt you to go and get the plugin. And we were discussing with Niall about having a framework for this within QGIS for other features as well, for example, meta search and other things, so that they don't need to ship with QGIS. They can still be like plugins, but they kind of like, there's the core knowledge of those plugins, and so when you click on the meta search icon or the GeoNode icon, it will see that you don't have it already installed and go and fetch it for you the first time you try to use it. So there might be a different approach to that, but we still need to discuss it as a community and kind of figure out if that can work.
Alrighty, thanks, Tim. Another question has come in from George. He acknowledges that this might be a question for the GeoNode team, but if you guys know, that it would be great. Are there any plans to add QGIS server as a GIS service provider to GeoNode, so that styling will be exactly the same like in QGIS desktop?
I can comment on that. So we actually did that in the past. It's actually been just removed now from GeoNode 4 that's coming out. And the reason for that was A, we didn't have funding to keep maintaining it, and it's a lot of maintenance work to maintain it. And B, that the implementation details were very complicated, trying to support two different, like GeoServer and QGIS server as different backends. The code base of GeoNode isn't really set up well to have this sort of separate backends, and the experience wasn't really so great. So I would love to see something like GeoNode with a QGIS backend, but it should probably be either designed from scratch or split off into its own project and strip away all the GeoServer and other parts and replace it completely with QGIS server. But I think for now, there are other ways to publish your QGIS data, like LizMap and QWebMaps 2, and there's various other tools. And And we also showed you before some things in the open source geospatial stack in the last open day. So there are other ways to do that if you need to.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. There don't seem to be any other questions in the live chat, other than Hans and some others saying that they're very excited and happy to test the the plugins. I do encourage everyone who's watching to go and test that out and have a bit of a play with it.
And please feel free to open all of the issues that you come across, so that we may, as I was saying, we want to battle test the plugin, make sure it works before we actually kickstart that process of discussing whether this can replace the core provider or not. We want to have a very solid alternative. So the intention to graduate it out of experimental and get people to use it is really to get people saying, hey, there's a bug here, there's a bug there, this should work like this rather than like that, so that we can fine tune it with a bit of time before moving forward with turning this into the official QGIS GeoNode type of connection. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ricardo. That's fantastic. Yeah, there are no other comments other than George saying thanks for that great answer to your question. And that is then everything. It just leaves me to thank you so much, Ricardo, for taking us through that really, really great plugin. I can see in my life where I can use that and how fantastic it'll be. I really like the visual aspect of it. I like being able to see the little thumbnail of the layer that we're going to get. I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's something that I miss in other ways that we can use WMS and WFS layers. So I think that's fantastic. And yeah, thank you both for being here and showing us this cool plugin. And I can't wait to go and test it out.
Thank you. Thank you too. And thanks for your time. Thanks for watching.
Maybe you want to advertise the last session before we go?
Yes, absolutely. So everyone who's been on the journey today, after this, on the top of the hour, there will be the last session of the day, which is going to be a fantastic session on the Map Tiler plugin. It's version 3, and it's got new vector-based maps and global digital elevation models. So definitely one to not miss. So join us at the top of the hour for our last session of the day, and we really enjoy your interactions, etc. So see you then.
Cheers.
Thank you all.
Cheers.